guys, welcome to another episode of The Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. My name is Nick.
I'm Ian.
And this week we're going to talk about a band that,
Nobody's ever heard of.
No
one's ever heard of these guys. They're very underground.
I wasn't a huge fan of them growing up in the 80s. I mean, we're going to talk about a little Metallica. But
Sure.
I think as I've gotten older, definitely when we got into like the Black Album, I feel like I appreciated them a little bit more. And then they kind of went through this like metamorphosis in a couple of different like eras of the band. I feel like, I don't know,
Just trying to find themselves and unsuccessfully at times, I'd say.
their first. I've got most of their early albums. I don't have Kill 'Em All. I was never a huge fan of the album Kill 'Em All. But
I'm a completist, so I have it. It's not. I like Ride the Lightning much better, but
Yeah.
I'm a completist, at least as far as the early stuff goes.
Yeah.
I don't have any of their latter day stuff yet, but I'm gonna get it.
Yeah, Kill 'Em All came out in what, 80,
3.
83? So there's definitely a period from at least the period where Cliff Burton was in the band. I feel like there was
Well, they're more thrash.
there were definitely more thrash
Yeah.
those first couple of albums, and I feel like once Jason Newsted joined the band for Injustice for All in 88.
I mean, they were still
right? Was it
kind of
88 when
thrashy.
Injustice for All came out?
88, yeah.
Yeah.
They were still kind of thrash, but not. They were adjusting their sound.
I think with Injustice for All, they became a lot more commercial. I guess not commercial, but more
Yeah, 'cause
mainstream.
commercial has a
A
lot
negative
of-
connotation to
yeah,
it. They're
exactly.
definitely more mainstream, I think, with Injustice for All.
Well, I mean, you look at what they were doing. I mean, the videos. They had two separate videos for the song One, which one is obviously one.
They're probably their
It's
biggest
memorable.
known hit.
Yeah, it's memorable.
I
I
guess
got
we'll-
into Metallica accidentally. I got Ride the Lightning on cassette for an Easter gift, and I didn't even know who Metallica was. It's just
Yeah.
like I said, it was almost weird.
Which album was that?
Ride the Lightning.
Ride the Lightning?
Yeah,
Okay.
weird accidents. So that's a great album. From the Bell Tolls, I think is the first song on the album.
It's a great album.
And it's a good start of an album. It's got the bells and
It's definitely memorable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's probably an album that I didn't really appreciate until the last couple of years. I know.
Right.
I remember my brother had it on CD. I remember listening to it in the probably late 80s. And but like I said, it was something that I was more at that time. I really liked. If I was going to listen to Metallica, it was going to be Injustice for All. It was going to be the Black Album. It was going to be Load, things like that. And it was just that like early era of Metallica. I don't know. I just didn't really
get into
until later on.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I always had more of an appreciation for the early era stuff. Although, I mean, the Black Album came out. I was in 8th grade. You were in 7th grade when that came out.
Yeah.
And that album was huge. I mean, everybody had that album. So
I would say that at that time they were probably, if not the biggest band in the world, they were definitely one of the biggest bands.
Right,
Probably
yeah.
them and Guns N' Roses were probably.
yeah. Well, and they went on
the
tour
two
together
biggest-
in
yeah.
'92. So,
I begged my mom to let me go to that concert though, and she was quick to shoot that down.
really?
Yeah, she wasn't gonna take me.
Well, that's true. Yeah, and we were what, 12, 13?
I was 12 or 13 at the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, that was, like I said, that was huge, and that I would say that almost even invigorated my appreciation of the older stuff, because it was like, I'd always listen to it, but it was like, oh, I really need to listen to something other than just Ride the
Yeah,
Lightning, because
yeah.
that's what I had at the time until I got the Black Album. So I went back and listened to like Master of Puppets, which is still my favorite of their albums.
Yeah,
I
it's
think.
a great album.
Yeah, with maybe Injustice for All coming in a close second.
But I think there's definitely this like early era of Metallica with Cliff on bass, and then you got like the Jason era, and I think there's like you can kind of break up the Jason Newsted era a little bit too, because you've got those couple of albums. You've got Injustice for All, you've got the Black Album, and then after the Black Album, I feel like
That's where they didn't really know what they were.
they were trying to figure out where they were going at that point. Yeah. You get Load, which I think Load is a really good album. I don't think it's as good as the albums that came before it.
No, or even a couple that came after.
Yeah, and then you got Reload, which is not as good as Load.
No.
And then I think after that, they kind of really started trying to figure out, because what came out, you had Saint Anger after that, which I think is a garbage album, even though...
Yeah, I don't think it's that bad, but it's not their best work.
That was the first album
I think a lot of people see Saint Anger, either they love it or they hate it. And I think over time, there's probably more people who love it now.
Yeah.
Because it's unique in their catalog.
Mm-hmm.
I like some of the songs on it. It's not
that was the first album without Jason Newsted.
Yes,
So that was with Robert Trujillo.
Yeah.
And then I think Death Magnetic, I think, is a good album.
I think it is.
Unforgiven 3, I think, is probably the best song off that,
Right.
at least in my opinion. And it's
arguably, I don't like it compared to the other Unforgiven songs.
No.
But, Death Magnetic is more in tune with what they were. It was like, okay, we're still Metallica. It's them coming out and saying, we're still Metallica. This is a Metallica album. Whereas Saint Anger was more of an experimental. Yeah. At least musically. Lyrically, it was Metallica, but musically, it was a huge experiment, I think, in trying to figure out what they wanted to be.
And it's just, I guess you get that with bands that have been around as long as Metallica. I think you're going to have those kind of different eras. But it's interesting that I think the bass, or a bass player, tends to not be hugely influential in a band. I think the bass playing and the style of those three bass players, I think, really had an influence on the overall sound of the band.
Well, it's noticeable.
It's
because, like you said, you can almost there's eras. There's the Cliff Burton era. There's Jason Newsted era, Robert Trujillo era, and you can tell when you listen to it. You can tell the difference between the three different groups. I say groups. I mean eras.
Yeah.
And I think that's true in a lot of bands. If you listen to them enough, you can tell when you've got certain instruments that have changed a lot. Yeah. Guitar is always going to be an obvious thing, but bass, totally be another band that you can tell. You can tell who's playing the bass, just by listening to it. So, I think I agree that the bass playing has had a huge impact on Metallica's music in their different eras and guises.
And I think that mainly it's just kind of the differences in speed and aggression that each of those three played. Now, granted, all three of them they're all fast players. Right. They all play with aggression. It's just there's just differences in how they go about that. Right. And I think that kind of plays a role. Maybe, like you said, Kurt Hammett, if he left the band, that'd be a huge difference in style. But I think the differences in the bass players leads to a difference in like some of the underlying style of their music.
Well, the whole rhythm section to a degree, I mean, Lars is a very I think he's kind of a one-note drummer. I don't think highly of Lars. I mean, he's a good drummer. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, he's a good drummer, but he's just not. I think he's slightly overrated. Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people look at some of his earlier work, look at And Justice for All and things like that, which he plays really great on. Yeah. And you're right, on some of especially like the latter, Reload.
It's very
It is a little bit more basic, I think. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say basic because I don't want to downplay it. Right. He is a good drummer. I just don't think he gets I think he gets a little bit more respect than
he probably deserves. When you compare him to other drummers, even in other genres, I think there are drummers that are infinitely better than Lars is, and don't tell him that because he'll totally disagree with
Absolutely.
it because he's an arrogant.
I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this video that'll probably disagree.
Oh, perhaps I'll listen to their opinions, but Lars is he's kind of a prick. Yeah, but he's very arrogant.
But then we get into Hardwired to Self-Destruct. I was not a fan of the album.
See, and I actually liked it a lot.
Did you?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a progression from the Death Magnetic.
I think it's some of it. I can see them trying to recapture some of that older sound, but it almost feels a little forced to me.
In some cases, I can see that. It also kind of has an old man sound to it. Like lyrically, it's like it's Metallica, but it's old. It's Metallica's old men. Like get off my lawn, kind of. Get off my lawn. Yeah, I don't know, but I enjoy it. I think it's a good album, and I think. Like I said, I think it's a natural progression.
It's definitely better than Saint Anger, I would say for sure.
I think it's a natural progression from Death Magnetic, personally.
But I don't know. That's I thought it was it's their progression is something that's, like I said, you see in other long-standing bands. It was interesting to me that it really the only thing that's changed is the bass player.
Right.
And I think people really don't understand how big of an influence that Cliff Burton had, especially in that earlier part, that Jason Newsted had in that middle part, and that Robert Trujillo has in the last.
It would have been
decade.
interesting if Cliff hadn't died. It'd be interesting to see where they would be right now.
Yeah.
You know, would they be considered one of the great bands of?
I think they would.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It really is because, you know, we got, to be honest, their big hits came after.
Yeah.
You know, so would those hits have been the same had he been there?
I think
because of his influence.
Yeah,
you know?
I think you could see on Master of Puppets what was coming, what was coming for Injustice for All, what was coming for the Black Album. I don't know if they would have taken the steps with the Black Album that they did with Cliff Burton on bass, but
was it Bob Rock or Rick Rubin who produced the Black Album?
I don't remember.
Whoever it was.
Of course, you'd ask me that now. I don't have my my screen in front of me.
Whoever it was, when they came in to produce the Black Album, the thing they said to the band, I just read this recently, was, I don't really understand what you guys were doing on that last album.
Yeah.
So, which is why, to be fair, the Black Album is very different from what had come before. But it kind of, it tells me also that depending on what had happened, if Cliff hadn't died, would they have continued that thrashy sound even farther beyond?
It's possible,
or even more so into Injustice for All.
It's possible.
So, you know, and if that were the case, maybe whoever it was, Bob Rock or Rick Rubin, I can't remember. I think it was Bob Rock, actually, now that I think about it. But he may not even have wanted to produce the Black Album if Injustice for All hadn't been the hit that it was, or as widely accepted as it was. So it's hard to say. You know, going forward, it worked out right for what it's worth.
Yeah, it's I guess that's kind of all I had. I figured it would be
just a little talk chat about Metallica.
And I don't know.
They're coming up. I think they formed in '81, so they're coming up on their 40th anniversary as a band, as a unit.
Yeah.
So that says a lot. There aren't a lot of bands who hit that 40-year mark.
No.
And are still relatively intact. You know?
Yeah. But drop a comment down below and tell us what your favorite era of Metallica is, and what albums you think are the best from their catalog. Right?
Yeah. And I mean, I think most people are going to say it's the early era up to the Black Album.
I don't know. There's Saint Anger. There's a lot of people out there that really love Saint Anger,
and I think it's actually grown in popularity over the years.
Yeah.
So.
But that's all I got. I mean, if you enjoy the show, give us a thumbs up.
Hit
the like button down below.
Subscribe.
Hit the bell to get notifications whenever a episode's been released.
Absolutely.
But that's all I got. Until next time.
Talk to y'all later.
Keep on spinning. Peace.